Okay, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you, Denny?
I'm good too.
And sorry for the tardiness. I completely forgot we planned for today.
That's a
And
typical Adar.
maybe it's just the fact that I'm Israeli and we're late for everything.
Yeah, you're using the cultural excuse.
Exactly. Okay, Danny, what are we debating? What's going on?
Um, so the topic is the counterproductivity of Zionism, and the I will argue for the one-state solution and not for any form of federation, confederation, or two states.
Cool.
Yeah, first I want to say thank you for having me here, and I really appreciate your work. Anything I will say, I'm sure will not be taken personally. Um, I honestly think you're doing such an important work, and I completely respect you. Um,
Likewise.
yeah. As a quick intro, I'll say that I'm an Israeli. I was born and raised in Israel. Very normal upbringing. Joined the
Danny,
idea.
I'm just fixing the lighting.
Very yeah. Basically, my concern is the Jewish people in general and the Jewish people in the land between the river and the sea specifically. I care about them dearly, and I want the best for them. Um, so I have a long list of things I want to say. So I have to ask you first, like, how much time do you think I have?
How much time would you ideally like?
Well, ideally, I would like to speak for 20 minutes.
I think that
I can try to cut it down to 10,
well,
basically.
I think the conversation will be more uh, engaging for the viewers if there's more of a back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you want to set up a different live stream where you yourself are in depth presenting this topic, take a full hour, do a screen share, bring up slides.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome to present that here on this channel. So we
Yeah.
could do that.
Yeah.
But for the
That's
sake
fine.
of this stream, so try to 5-10 minutes, and you'll have ample time to make all the points you want throughout the
Okay.
discussion.
All right, cool. So I'll start by saying the 4 points I want to make today. Number one, I want to define Zionism. Number two, I want to explain why Zionism is counterproductive. Number three, I want to conclude that the two-state solution, federation, confederation, is not going to bring peace. And four, argue for the one-state solution. So I'm going to start with number one, define Zionism. I want to make a point to you because I heard you saying in the past that you don't like engaging in semantics and definitions can be tricky. I think I can agree with that on other cases, but I think we need to define Zionism because, in my opinion, this is the core of the problem that everything flows out of. So my definition of Zionism is really a very simple one. It is a Jewish state. Basically, it's a three-word sentence. Zionism equals a Jewish state. So nothing controversial. You can stop me at any point if you want to respond.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'll stretch the sentence a little longer. I'll say Zionism is a nationalistic ideology aimed at establishing a Jewish state. So I think it's pretty straightforward. But you can already see from that single sentence that quite a few issues arise. By defining the state as Jewish, there is um, a, the definition of who belongs to the state is you need to be Jewish, and who the state is for the Jewish. There is already basically an embedded discrimination right there, and it's almost like saying the Jews are a nation. And in Hebrew, they say that. They say, Aleom Yehudi, right? The Jewish, the word nation in Hebrew applies to the Jews. So when the world started dividing itself into states and countries, the Zionism basically said, okay, well, let's build a state for the Jews because we are a nation. So, I mean, I think that by default, it's discriminatory. It's almost impossible to have it so it's not discriminating. And the state of Israel basically says this is not negotiable. The state belongs to the Jewish people, period. You can talk about whatever you want all day long. And they play this game where they narrow the spectrum of conversation to this policy or that policy, killing civilians, taking land, ethnic cleansing, bad or good. But you cannot talk about the Jews deserve and have the right to have a state. This is not, it's a taboo. It's a taboo. If you're going to go in Israel with a sign saying we need to dismantle the Jewish state, you will have consequences in your face very, very quickly. And there is so basically anti-Zionism is almost not acceptable topic of discussion. I will extend the point about the Jews being a nation. In Israel, there's a registry computer, right? Every person who's born in Israel or immigrating to Israel, the computer will say if he's Jewish or some other ethnicity. And there was a group of Israelis who actually went to the Supreme Court, I think 10 years ago or so, and they said, we want our nationality under that line. We wanted to say Israeli. We don't want to say Jews, Christians, Muslim. There's a list of all, I think I heard, if I remember correctly, a list of 200 options, but you cannot be an Israeli. And the Supreme Court says, no, it's denied. You cannot be an Israeli. You have to choose which nationality you belong to. And I think this is the core of the problem, because out of that, there is so much conflict arises. So I just wrote myself a few points. I'm not a good speaker, so I'm just going to read a few things. So the Jews need a state. That's what Zionism says. The Jews need a state in order to be safe and maintain the continuation of the Jewish people. The state of Israel protects the Jewish people. This is a given. You're born into this ideology, you're raised into it, and you believe it. You believe the Jewish people need a state, deserve a state, have a right for a state. And like I said, this is non-negotiable. So by default, this is discriminatory. I'm not even talking about the West Bank and Gaza. I'm saying the ideology is discriminatory. It doesn't matter if you have 20% non-Jews, 15% non-Jews, 30% non-Jews. It doesn't even matter. You have discrimination by default. And this is non-functional in a modern Western society. You cannot be a democracy. This is not a democracy. Democracy in the 21st century means equality and 100% equality in the eyes of the law. Of course, there will be discrimination between people, but the law cannot discriminate in a modern Western form of democracy. So Israel is not a democracy. So let's see. Okay, so I want to make another point about that. That by limiting, by saying that this is non-negotiable, Israel is limiting the discussion. You cannot, for example, the anti-Zionism, it's just not allowed to be talked about. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. I already said that. So I will continue unless you want to comment on anything I said.
Yeah, maybe I'll just make a few comments. So I agree with you to a large extent, actually. I don't know if we reach the same conclusions based on the. I think we agree on the problem you're describing, perhaps not the conclusion or solution. So just to start about Zionism and saying we need to define it, the definition you gave, I'm super okay with. I still think it's a meaningless term because people who are Zionist and anti-Zionist have very different definitions. So they're at a disadvantage when communicating because they have different definitions over this term Zionism. If Zionism just means support for a Jewish state, that doesn't require its own term. If you support Palestine as a Muslim state, does that make you a what? Just means you support Palestine as a Muslim state. It's just an unnecessary term that, in my opinion, causes more confusion than it provides clarity. So that's where my objection comes from. But how you defined it, I think that is a suitable definition. In terms of a Jewish state will always have some level of discrimination, I agree with you. Although I think over time, over many years of peace and perhaps a nonviolent civil rights movement from within Israeli society, whatever discrimination exists today can be changed completely. Now, will it ever get to a point where if you're a non-Jew living in a Jewish state, will you always feel at some disadvantage and there's no way to fix that disadvantage? And maybe the disadvantage is not even something that could be measured by material means. It's a psychological disadvantage. It's just a feeling of not being part of the society that is dominant in the country. Perhaps, right? I think the psychology of a non-Jew living in a Jewish state might be the hardest to solve, not the material disadvantage. I think that's probably easier. So I recognize that to be true, but that on its own is not going to get me to be completely against two states. And again, for those who don't know, I consider myself more solution agnostic. I could support two states or one state. For me, what's important is that the rights of the people are protected. And how do we build institutions that could protect people's rights? So that could be by us sharing the same institutions, which would be more of a one-state paradigm, or it could be us having separate institutions, which is more of a two-state paradigm. So while I recognize that disadvantage in two separate sets of institutions, to me, that's not a great enough disadvantage to entirely reject that idea, because I could see clear potential disadvantages with us all having shared institutions, at least in the shorter term. So while I agree with the problems you're identifying, to me that doesn't convince me entirely that two states can't work or shouldn't work, or we just should completely throw that idea. No, it still might very well be the most feasible and ultimately most just solutions. So, and I'll leave it with you with a thought experiment. Let's say that it was either two states that had some level of discrimination in both these states, or one state that had a high likelihood of turning to be just civil war with mass amounts of death and destruction. Now, that's likely not the only two options, but given those, let's say those are the two options, would you in that case prefer two states over a massive civil war in one state?
I'm not sure. I think obviously I'm against violence and I want peace. So if there will be today an event like a prime minister of both signing a federation agreement, I'll be the last person to walk in there and says don't do it or anything like that. Like anything that would stop this madness, I mean, is
Right.
for sure is for sure better. But I think that we have to think about the long-term solution. This is my personal interest, is to try to dissect and analyze the situation from a bigger point of view and think about the long. I don't believe that one-state solution will materialize in my lifetime. Maybe it takes 100 years. But I think this is the goal. It's kind of like Herzl. Herzl never saw the Zionist materialize, but he put together a vision. And I think that's how my interest is towards that. I want to reply to a few things you said. You mentioned that the definition for you is not so much important. And again, I just want to say that by not calling on Zionism the core problem, which I believe it is, and you can disagree, you can say it's not the core problem, but I think it is. And by not calling it out, now we're just talking about this situation or that. Gaza, is it a genocide or not? And then we says, oh yeah, it was bad to do that, so let's not do that anymore. We kind of like saying, oh yeah, the national, the law of nation, I forget what it's called, Chok HaLeom, the state law, where it's declared that the state belong exclusively to the Jewish people.
The nation state law.
Yeah, so people say, oh, that's a bad law, let's reverse that. I think if you're going to stay within this spectrum of, not calling out the core of the problem, which is Zionism, we're just going to let everything else be specific on case by case, which in my opinion, that's fine. We can do that. We can go and do this thing that you're calling transform to a more equal. But from my point of view, we're going to have to go back all the way to the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence states very specifically that the state belongs to the Jewish people. It says we the people, which is kind of interesting, an analogy to the US Constitution, right? We the people. And back when they wrote that, they meant we the white male people, right? The black didn't have voting rights and so on. But one of the points I want to make, I'm jumping ahead a little, is Zionism and the Jewish state concept is very limited in its ability to adapt. You're talking about transformation a lot, right? You're saying don't criticize it as if it needs to be dismantled, help it be transformed. And I'm saying, yeah, I'm on board with that, but it needs to be transformed to a point where we go back and look at the Declaration of Independence and say, this is where the problem starts. You're defining the state as we the people, and you're limiting the ability to adapt. There is a certain limitation built into Zionism in evolution, so yeah. So just to explain, sorry, I'm getting caught in my thoughts. Basically, the point I'm making is that in the US, when they said we the people originally, they said we the white male people, but there was an evolution. There was a resistance to slavery, and
they didn't say that. That's what they meant.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they meant. Yeah. But in the Israeli Declaration of Independence, it says, we, the Jewish people, we were here and we formed our Jewish identity here in Israel. And after the Holocaust, we came back. And now we are building a new country for the Jewish people. And then after saying we, the people, like 13 times, last time I counted, there is a paragraph on the bottom that says, and we invite the Arabs to participate in building the nation, which is almost like an illustration of where are we heading with this project, which is, like I said before, it's a built-in discrimination. And you can argue that it's not inevitable that there will be discrimination and we can work to minimize it. I would argue that this is going to lead us to where we are today. The place where Israel is today is a consequence of this premise, the Jewish state.
So something about, you said you want it to be clear that the problem is Zionism. I look at it a little bit differently. I look at it as the problem is institutions that are not protecting the rights of all the people living between the river and the sea. So Zionism, in its current manifestation, is a set of institutions that is doing just that. It's not protecting the rights of the people. But the reason I say I frame it that way is because you could dismantle Zionism, replace it with something else that still doesn't protect the rights of the people, and then that too becomes the problem. So the reason I don't want to I don't focus on Zionism being the sole boogeyman and kind of broadening it in how we should look at solutions is because there's this idea that, okay, if Zionism is the problem, you get rid of Zionism, that's the solution. But that's not at all obvious when we look at the complexity and the dynamic here on the ground. If we can't replace the current institutions or transform the current institutions with something that truly protects the right of the people, then we didn't solve the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm fine with going with this approach and saying let's transform the institution. But I mean, if you look at the institution, let's say the Jewish National Fund, right, Kakal, that's the body that holds the entire control of the land. All the real estate properties are controlled by the Jewish National Fund. It's a Jewish organization, and the same is for the Histadrut, the new Jewish union, workers' union. It's a Jewish institution. It was established for the purpose of prioritizing Jewish work and Jewish workers, and it goes on and on. The entire country institution is built on supporting the Jewish state. So yeah, I mean, if we can look, if Israel can transform and become a place where Jews are no longer favored whatsoever in any law whatsoever, so that's great. I mean, that's basically the one-state solution in a way, because like other people said in the past, we're living in a one-state solution. I mean, it's almost like can be seen as if it's a civil war. Right now, the war in Israel is between people, inhabitants of the same territory, the same area. So that's for that.
Yeah. A quick note on the concept of dismantling or transforming. I think there's probably a functional difference with what a dismantling and a transformation of an institution looks like. But I think more importantly, it's an important framing, because the best way to actually change the situation on the ground is to get buy-in from people living here. So tell Israelis we need to dismantle institutions. They're like, no. That freaks them out. You say, oh, but let's transform them. It could mean functionally, it could mean the same exact thing, but framed in a way that Israelis might be much more inclined to participate in the process. And also, I think sometimes an institution can do a lot right and some wrong, so you don't need to build it from the scratch. You could just modify some things. But I actually think the United States is probably a decent example, because they didn't have, they added some amendments to the Constitution, but they didn't have some sweeping constitutional changes to need to fix the discrimination of the past and the injustices of the past. They actually, over time, the institutions just evolved and transformed into something that was able to protect the rights of all people, right? America wasn't dismantled, and America was built on, it was built on genocide of an indigenous population, hundreds of years of brutal slavery and then segregation. And I would want the process in Israel-Palestine to not take that long, right? And thankfully, time moves quicker in the modern world. But that's a clear example of a nation that started in a really rotten, brutal way. And there's many flaws we could point to still in the American.
Started in brutal way.
Well, the genocide of the indigenous populations,
because of the ideology of the new Jewish state.
No, I'm talking about the United States and how that was built. But yeah, Israel was built on the ethnic cleansing of the native population. Yeah, for sure. But we do have historical examples of countries that have fundamentally transformed without needing to be dismantled. They just transformed over time. And then others fully, I don't know if fully dismantled, but let's take an example for Nazi Germany, right? Germany still exists, but that was transformed in a way that was not like a natural evolution over time. That was getting destroyed and rebuilt, and new institutions being rebuilt.
Yeah. And
Uh,
actually,
yeah.
and actually, it's interesting to point that I looked one time the history of how did the Germans deal with the past of Nazi Germany, and they almost say, "Oh, it was a group of people called the Nazis." It's almost like in some literature it is being detached from themselves, and I think it's a perfectly good example of how Israel can transform by letting go of Zionism and saying, yeah, there used to be a group of people who were Zionist, and we don't do that anymore. And so that's so I think it's important to point to these other countries you said, like, that had an evolution, like the U.S. and many Western democracies today went through an evolution, and I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is that Israel, by declaring itself as a Jewish state in the Declaration of Independence, is putting itself in a box, and it's not evolving. It's resisting the evolution, and it's doing so with any means possible. So even if the U.S. support to Israel would crumble today, I mean, yeah, it will be pretty hard for Israel to remain, but they will resist it. It's going to be like, I don't know, they will probably go to China and find someone else to support them somehow. I don't know, but it's not allowing itself to evolve. This is the argument I'm trying to make, and I can provide. I can keep going.
What do you think would happen if we were to be able to reduce the fear of Israelis? Because a lot of, I think, the resistance to change and the desire to have a Jewish state for Jews that's majority Jewish, a lot of that stems from deep-rooted fear of us not being able to protect ourselves. If we were able to get over that fear through prolonged peace, my impression, although I'll play devil's advocate with myself. You have the fastest growing population in Israel are ultra Orthodox, right? But the second fastest growing population are Palestinian citizens of Israel. So that's interesting. Now, if we could get over the constant fear of being genocided and being destroyed, our desire to have this Jewish state will reduce significantly. You'll still have the ideological drive that many people hold, but what unifies secular, religious, right and left Israelis across the board is fear of being destroyed. So if we can get rid of that fear, then you very quickly change the psyche of the population living here.
I definitely agree with you that fear is huge, and actually, it's one of the points I wanted to make, is that Zionism is benefiting from inciting fear in its own citizens. And yeah, I mean, I don't think we can reduce fear with Zionism still in place. But I want to say something else. I want to sort of jump to the end of my point about talking against the two-state solution, the federation, the confederation. Sure. This is one of the core points I'm trying to make, is that Zionist ideology would remain in place even if there's a two-state solution. I'm gonna wait.
No, I'm listening. I'm fully listening. Yeah. I'm trying to solve the lighting issue. That's
yeah. So I just want to reiterate the premise I'm trying to make here is that Zionism is the core of the problem, and with going to a two-state solution, we're not removing the problem. Even if Israel becomes a smaller state without the West Bank and Gaza, Zionism as an ideology would remain in place and would continue to create those problems. Like 20 right now. So right now, there is this premise that Zionism or the Jewish state can be sustainable with, let's say, 20% minorities. But I'm arguing it doesn't even matter. So like going to a two-state solution, let's say, and taking away the West Bank and Gaza, if you stay with Zionism as the core ideology and with this concept of the Jewish state, you're going to continue manufacturing consent. You're going to continue manufacturing the trauma of the Holocaust. You know, as an Israeli, I can tell you, we are being taught the Holocaust as if it's around the corner and it's coming to get us. This is intentional. It's intentional because now you believe you need a Jewish state, and every attack is interpreted on the attack of the Jews' right to exist. This is serious. This is a serious psychology that is being used. So I don't think that, you know, bringing peace by two-state solution or federation is the right way to look at it, because you're allowing Zionism to continue playing the victim, you know, and looking for this demographic balance and limiting some of the Arab towns. They keep doing this. What we're seeing today is just an explosion of it. So we think, oh, something went wrong in the last 2 years. No, this is built into the system. It's just that it's like a pot that keeps boiling up until it's exploding. So that's.
But why? Wait, Danny, I'm not sure. I think that's solved by a one-state solution. In a one-state solution, if anything, you significantly increase the fear that Jews have because they don't have the IDF and the institutions to protect them. So it puts them in a more fear-based mode where they're going to try very hard to maintain political and demographic control. And I don't think that defeats Zionism. I think that just increases fear. The best way to weaken this idea that we need a state for our people is to reduce fear. So I don't. How does one state solve that?
I think that the question of how do we dismantle Zionism is, for me, like, keeps me up at night. Like, I don't even know. I keep thinking about it. It's really hard because, yeah, I mean, we can talk about that, but I think I agree with you in general. We need to reduce fear. And I think the point that you're making is that if I'm going to make it one-state solution, the people in Israel will freak out. They will start getting arms and, you know, getting ready to fight the Arabs. It's not easy. It's not like I can do it overnight. I think by framing the problem first as the ideology that seeks to have a Jewish state as the core of the problem, and now I need to put together a vision, right? This is something I'm not planning to discuss today, but I'm starting to think, like, how do I put a vision of a state that allows Jews, that cements Judaism as like a value that needs to be protected and being something that can be standing together with Islam and Christianity. Like we need to put forward a vision that tells the Jewish people in Israel, you are protected by the definition of the state as much as your Muslim and Christian neighbors. This is so yeah, we need to reduce fear by putting together a new vision, not just dumping a one state like tomorrow morning. But I think that we cannot do that in the long term by maintaining the Jewish state concept.
So what's your, and Danny, I do want to, I see some people want to hop on and ask questions. Are you cool bringing other people on?
I would ask to quickly give me 5 minutes.
Sure. I have a question for you though.
Yeah.
What's your objection to a federation then? Because a federation seems to solve the problems that you're describing while ensuring that it's a better way to ensure the rights of the people are protected.
Well, like I said, in my point of view, Federation, like federation basically says two states. And that means that the Jews will have a Jewish state. And the concept that I'm saying, the concept of a Jewish state is a concept that manufactures discrimination. It's a concept that manufactures resistance. It's a concept that is not democratic, and it's gonna self-defeat itself. Whether you're gonna put it in a two-state federation, as long as you're maintaining the concept that the Jews need a state to survive, it's gonna be a self-defeating operation.
I mean, I don't see how you can convince Jews otherwise just through words. It would need to be something that they could be convinced of over years of peace and feeling safe. There's no education. Well, if you completely change that,
I think what needs to happen is there needs to be a movement of Muslim, Jews, and Christians in this land that puts together a new vision, and that starts growing and then people will see that they can work towards a new future.
Right. So a large grassroots movement. I'm super supportive of that. We're just so far from that currently,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that everything
we're considered fringe. We're considered naive. The extremists consider us traitors.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's not easy. It's gonna take hundreds of years, or hopefully a little less, but it's a long-term philosophy. Because even if let's say Zionism keeps doing what it's doing successfully and cleansing the land of 3 million Palestinians, and now there's only 20% Palestinians from the river to the sea. I mean, you're gonna have immigration of workers. Like today, there is immigration from Asia. You're gonna have people who are not Jewish. 20% non-Jews is not some formula that brings peace. Like if you think about African American in the U.S., they were never more than 13%. Jews in Nazi Germany were less than 1%. When your ideology is racist and discriminatory by definition, you're going to collapse no matter what. We're in the 21st century. Israel is a nation among nations. It's not longer empires and kingdoms. I mean, sure, you can become North Korea. It's just going to become worse and worse and worse. So I think my hope is to build a new future for the Jewish people and the non-Jewish people living in this land.
Amen. And inshallah.
Yeah. I just want to say a few things, and then give me honestly like 2-3 minutes.
I think some of the people that want to hop on want to ask you questions or challenge points.
Okay.
So
okay. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead.
No, but you could do the 2-3 minutes.
Okay. I just want to say honestly 1 minute. Okay. So we talked about the trauma. We talked about the fact that Zionism is limiting evolution. It's a non-evolving species almost. It's fear-driven. The whole thing about self-determination, right? Like in the 19th century, self-determination was a state. Nowadays, in modern democracies, self-determination simply means representation, cultural representation, political representation. You don't get to have a state by being an ethnic group. I'm just going to jump. Now, there's a whole issue with the way Zionism is affecting the Middle East. The fact Zionism is almost benefiting from chaotic Middle East. This is a whole other topic, portraying Islam as the problem. Muslims are our brothers. When you think about 3,000 years of history. We lived mostly in peace. The Jews who lived in Arab countries lived mostly in peace. There's so much examples about cultural exchange, philosophical, medicine, architecture. It's just amazing how much Jews and Muslims coexisted in the last 2,000 years, and suddenly we're enemies. I mean, this is a result of bringing Jewish nationalism into the Middle East and forcing itself. It's a military operation. Okay, I'm just gonna say the last thing. Zionism is trying to say that they are somehow Jewish, that Judaism and Zionism are like the same. You know, this new law that if you're anti-Semitic, if you're anti-Israeli, then you're also anti-Semitic. I mean, there's a certain portrayal that Israel is the home of Judaism. And when you think about it, this is just, it's sad. I mean, Judaism has so much respect in the Torah for people who are strangers. You know, you have to love them as yourself. There's a whole Jewish wisdom about coexistence that Zionism is repressing. That this is not something that is helping, so we're not going to talk about it. It's so that's the last thing I'll leave it with. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the conflation between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, though they are often intertwined and often one and the same, they're not inherently one and the same. And I actually think that the attempt to make it seem like the weaponization of the term anti-Semitism in defense of Israel is fuel to the fire, which is anti-Semitism. People don't take the word seriously anymore. It's been rendered meaningless because if people are talking about the dead children in Gaza and then you're accused of blood libel, like that's just a ridiculous usage of the term, and it's just a ridiculous accusation. So I agree there should be seen as a separation. I think that's something I'm going to start talking about more, anti-Semitism and how to interact with it, because what's interesting is the mainstream approach to dealing with anti-Semitism is not identical, but very similar to what is often described as wokeness. If you look at how, let's say, the racial justice movement, that racial justice is broad, but what was described as wokeness when it comes to weaponization of the term racism, it's very similar to how anti-Semitism is weaponized. When it comes to broadening of the term, that pretty much anybody is very easily a racist, we see the same with anti-Semitism, where we see assuming the worst about people's intentions and trying to cancel them for things they say or do rather than trying to engage with them and educate them. Very similar features with how these forms of activism exist. But what's interesting is you hear woke right, woke left, but Jewish activism today talking about anti-Semitism is as woke as any other, but it has not been called that. And I'm not sure that's the right term, woke Jewish. I don't want to brand that term. I think that I don't want to brand this this form of activism in a pejorative. I want to find words to describe it as an approach to talking about anti-Semitism, which is one approach that today is mainstream, but not only is it not productive, it's counterproductive. And I want to start talking about a different approach to how to actually interact with anti-Semites, deal with anti-Semitism in a way that is not only not counterproductive, but it actually makes a difference.
I want to just say I agree with you, and even I would say Zionism and the Jewish state concept actually fuels anti-Zionism, and then the media in Israel is using that to say, see, they're anti-Semitic, we need the Jewish state. It's like the same as attack on October 7th. See, we need the Jewish state to defend the Jewish people. It's like a cycle that they use psychologically. I just want to end with actually I want to tell you something. Again, with all respect, I think that, like I said, Israel is narrowing the discussion and to what's allowed to be said. And I think that you, and I'm telling you this as a friend, I think that you're still falling within that perimeter by not challenging this ideology and talking about two-state federation. I think you're basically, it's kind of like you can only go so far and then you need to stop. And then I guess I want to invite you to rethink, how far are we allowed to speak against the state of Israel?
I'm not sure. You think that because I'm not entirely renouncing any form of two states, it means I'm limiting myself? Is that what you say?
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
I wholeheartedly disagree. I think, as I often describe, for me, what's important is that the rights of the people are protected, and that can be done in both the two-state or one-state paradigm. If anything, I think that's just me remaining more pragmatic than taking just one approach and saying, no, the only way to protect the rights is X. When I think there's a way to protect the rights is X, Y, or Z, I think it's a more pragmatic approach. And I think it's also an approach that is more, it's has a broader appeal, because I'm not just trying to appeal to anti-Zionists. The viewers here, as we've seen the comments, there's Israelis, Palestinians, pro-Israelis, pro-Palestinians. Leaving an open conversation and room for discussion and debate over what is the solution, I think is important to building a broad coalition that could actually bring about change. The second you're just stuck on Zionism needs to be dismantled, it's the only way forward, you're limiting who's going to listen to you, and you're also limiting the range of potential possibilities.
all right.
Should we bring some people on?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. There is a lot of Q&A going on as well, but nothing, I think. Maybe we could do some questions, but I want to let the people on Discord on. Simfo, we're going to bring you on first. Simfo, you've been invited on. I don't know if you're still here.
It's almost as simple as saying the state can be Jewish and Muslim and Christian. I'm not against canceling the Jewish out.
Right. You don't want it to be above.
It's exclusive.
Right. Okay. We have Simfo here. Simfo, what's up, man? It's been a while.
Hey, it's been okay. I wanted to inject some historical analysis into the framework. Donnie, when would you say that Zionism has run its course?
Well, I mean, 100 years? Actually, more like 120, 130.
Before it started?
No, he's asking when do you feel like Zionism is officially ended? Like when is the time where Zionism should no longer exist?
When the Constitution does not define the ownership of the land by your religious, ethnic, whoever your mother gave you birth. I don't know.
Do you think that the Constitution of Israel would have looked the same if it wasn't drafted under civil war?
If I think the Constitution was not drafted under civil war, I'm
giving you a scenario where let's say that Palestinian leadership accepted the 47 partition plan, and two states are being being founded. Do you think that the perception of Zionism as an institution would have been the same? Or do you think it's not reactive to its environment?
I don't know what would happen if the Arabs would accept the partition plan. I think the Zionist leadership would have a serious problem on its hand. It would almost inflict a civil war by force, which is what they did. 1948 was a war initiated and orchestrated by the Zionist leaders.
How so?
As soon as the partition plan was announced, they took some random attack by Arabs as an excuse to start the ethnic cleansing. The ethnic cleansing was premeditated.
No, we weren't pushed out until Plan Dalit, and Plan Dalit happened after the Civil War already started.
Well,
Plan Dalit was
as we know,
during the Civil War.
Yeah, the Plan Dalit as we know it was formulated in his latest version after the war started, but the previous versions were already drafted.
The previous versions being Plan Aleph, Bet, and Gimel, right?
There's a whole series of intelligence collection about where you should attack the village from, who you should take out because he's a leader. The idea that the land belongs to the Jewish people and needs to be conquered is very well established before 1948.
No, but that's not the reason Israel exists. It doesn't exist because a bunch of Jews decided that they're owed in Israel.
Israel exists because of Zionist ideology that was, by the way, let me say something interesting about Zionist ideology. In the beginning of the 20th century, most Jews were not Zionist, and I'm talking about 99-point-something% of European Jews they didn't have any interest in Zionism. They knew about it, and they said, good luck, you guys, not for us. In 1925, the US closed the borders. In 1930, Nazi Germany raised. So you have something like 85,000 Jews in Palestine in 1920, getting all this influx of Jewish immigrations who are basically there because they don't have anywhere else to go, and they're educating them. They're educating them that they need the Jews need the state for the Jews. So Zionism is not something that the Jews
the
were.
way that you're describing that sounds like the way that you're describing it. It sounds like you're saying that the people who are doing this educating, they don't believe that, they're contriving it, and that's what I want to push against.
No, the core of the Zionists, the 1% that did come to Palestine, were highly ideological, almost like zealots. They really, really felt like this is the most. It's almost like a religion. Zionism acts like a religion. It tells you this is the truth. It's a one truth. You don't question it. You follow it. And this is what they did to all the new Jews.
I reject that. I reject that framing. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's true at all.
Okay.
I think Zionism was an analysis. It was a societal analysis of what Europe is and what Europe is going to become in the 19th century, and the conclusion that Jews are not safe there. And the Zionist project is solving the problem of Jews not being safe in Eastern Europe and afterwards the entirety of Europe.
I definitely agree that we
can point to things that would that demonstrate that. First of all, the founders of Zionism talked about the rescue project all the time. That was the driving.
That's a myth. That's a myth. Chaim Weizmann. That's a myth. Chaim Weizmann refused.
There were settlements in Argentina. Why were there settlements in Argentina?
The concept that Zionism provides refuge is a myth. Chaim Weizmann refused refugees from Jewish Ukrainian refugees because they were uneducated, poor, and physically unfit. So it became, anyway, I want to say that I agree with your point that Zionism was highly influenced by European philosophy of ethnic nationalism. And also Zionism was, supported by the British imperial operation. So yes, there
So
was.
I want to rephrase what you just said. I want to say that Zionism was influenced by the material conditions of Jews in the European diaspora.
Yeah, look, I don't actually have much complaints.
They saw the model of Jewish integrationism collapse before their eyes, and their solution was a nation state, or a national home. The nation state idea wasn't relevant until after the Ottoman Empire collapsed. But before that, the idea of a national home, that came from the failure of integrationism, from the material condition of Jews in Europe being driven out of their communities in the hundreds of thousands. It's the way that you talk about these things. It's like a conspiracy that Jews cooked up. It's history. It's what happened to Jews that made Zionism.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that the Zionism or roots are in European anti-Semitism and the lack of ability, just like you said, of European countries to integrate Jewish citizens. This is not the case today. European countries evolved and they learned that it's not a good way to go. The Zionism, however, is not evolving.
This is why I started this back and forth by asking you, when do you think Zionism has run its course? And I was expecting to get an answer that wasn't since the very beginning, because I thought that we would agree that Zionism had a purpose.
I misunderstood the question. I'm sorry.
The question, if we agree that Zionism had a good and justified purpose in its ideological founding, the driving purpose of Zionism is that Jews needed to be saved, and it needed to find a solution for saving those Jews. It's not the case that Zionism cooked up some conspiracy about the entire world wanting to kill Jews in order to facilitate a Jewish state. Like we can.
No, I think
at least started out as justified.
Yeah, I think Theodor Herzl's intentions were good. You know, I read both his books, and it seems to be kind of funny to read them because he's totally missing the future challenges. You know, he thinks the challenges were like, how should we be convincing the European to give us some of the property values because we need some money. It was totally technical. As far as Palestinian goes, he was like, oh, they'll love it. They'll just hop on the band, you know? So yeah, the intentions originally were fine, but I think I just want to say one thing. I just want to say that the European countries and the US evolved into learning to reinterpret what it means to be a democratic society. Israel is not evolving because it's locked itself into a narrow definition of what the purpose of the state is. The Star of David on the flag is this is it. You either with us or against us. And if you want to be Muslim, okay, fine, but you have to support this ideology.
I don't agree with that either. I don't think Israel or Jewish society or Israeli political thought is not able to evolve with reality. I think it's done exactly that, and that's kind of been the problem. Is that as reality deteriorated, Zionism's perception also changed along with that. You portray it as this is something that internally happened, that Zionists did this.
Not for that.
Only Zionists had agency within the past 100 years, and that's what I'm pushing against.
Yeah, I agree that Zionism is not intentionally interested in conflict with non-Jews. They just expect them to be on board with it. And if they're not, then we'll bring the military in. It's not, Zionism is fine if everybody who's not Jewish is fine with Zionism.
All right, we're gonna Simfo will give you final thoughts, and then we're gonna bring Altoids on. But if you both have interest in doing a longer session, then we could set that up, and you guys can go deeper into this.
Let me think if it was like a specific thing that I wanted to address then.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I don't want to hold you up. You can.
I do want to respond to one thing he said, which is, I forget what was the words, but it seems like it's not intentionally in deteriorating. And my response is that actually there's a built-in problem, which is because Zionism doesn't work, it needs to double down. So it gets more radical. It makes more laws like the state-nation law. It's shifting to the right by default. This is what happens to ideologies that are based in ethnic supremacy.
I disagree with you very much. I don't think that your model can explain what happened in the peace process in early 2000. Why, if that's the case, then like why did the left ever win elections on the promise of peace talks?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I'm just gonna stop at that. We can, like Adar said, we can go into a longer segment. I don't think the peace talks were honest search for an equality.
We can put that aside for a second. The actually debating the parameters and all whatever you want. I'm saying like as I'm saying as like a litmus test of the average Zionist Israeli sentiment, the fact that the Israeli voter voted for peace talks. They voted for a peaceful resolution of the conflict.
The problem is that their definition.
After that failed, after that I would go on to say that even after that failed, the Israeli voter still voted for pulling out of the West Bank.
Israelis for sure want peace. Everybody wants peace.
And on the promise of pulling out of the West Bank, and the Israeli voter wanted that, even after the peace plan failed. Well, I think your narrative is very one-dimensional in the way that it characterizes what it is to be Zionist. I don't think it does historical justice to even to the past 40 years. Like we don't even have to go back to like early Ottoman era Zionism. Like even the last 40 years.
I mean, when we talk about the terms of peace for Israel is always like border control, no militarization. There's a certain superiority concept that's built into their definition of peace. It's not equality. It's like we need to make sure you guys don't have any weapons, and we're going to check everything that's coming in, and we're going to have air superiority control. It's a one-sided version of peace.
Wait. So first of all, these are these things that there's like no reason for Israel to want them? Or
if you believe that Israel deserves,
is it just to feel superior, or do you think that Israelis have a real belief that these are necessary to removing control from the West Bank, for instance, from occupied territories?
The idea that you're gonna have a Jewish state in the middle of the Middle East, surrounded by refugees of that land that are not allowed to go back to their homes, is gonna breed conflict.
We're refugees surrounded by refugees.
You're gonna breed conflict by default. Israel is not at war because the Arabs don't like Jews. It's because of what
I didn't say that. Like we can do a more like serious analysis of what Zionism is than just say, oh, Zionists think all Arabs want to kill the Jews.
I'm defining Zionism as an ideology that is trying to build a Jewish state. It's a Jewish state, and by building a Jewish state in a place that has a Muslim population, that you're requiring by default to have a Jewish majority, you're by default going to plan the next ethnic cleansing. It's not an option. Otherwise, you cannot survive. So you're going to breed conflict, military conflict.
So when Israel accepted the 47 partition plan with a 45% Arab majority, that was a ruse? Do you think they would have cleansed them out if, like, say, the Palestinians had agreed to the partition plan, you think Israel would have pushed out 45% of its population?
I think that maybe they would try to tell them, look, this is a Jewish state. You can stay here if you're okay with that, and then if you're not, then we'll ethnic cleanse you. I mean, you can't have I'm not saying that Israelis and Zionism is by default looking to ethnic cleanse everybody who's not Jewish. It's if you don't agree with the ideology, then we have to ethnic cleanse you because
I'm saying that if you think that Zionism inherently wants to ethnically cleanse, then you need to do a lot of work to explain why Zionism was able to accept a 55% majority in the 47 partition plan. Why were they?
Yeah. Like I said, Zionism is okay with the minority that's not Jewish, as long as this minority is okay.
Not a minority. Like not really.
As long as this minority is okay with the Jewish state, and the state belongs to the Jewish people. As long as you're okay with it, you can stay. You're all good. We like you. You know, no problem. No ethnic cleansing.
Although I think it's more likely that achieving a Jewish state was such a massive victory that it's not like the Zionists were in any position to complain. If they got recognition, they're going to take it. 45% Palestinian demographic, they'll figure that out later. And they very well could have expected there to be resistance to the establishment of a Jewish state, which then they could opportunistically remove some number of Palestinians or make their life just miserable in the land of Israel, so they voluntarily immigrate. Like it's unclear what their rationale or thought process was, but it was probably not so thought out. It's like, okay, we got the establishment of a state, we're going to take it. What happens next, we'll figure out based on what happens next. I think that's.
I also want to make the point that when the partition plan was accepted, the big story was they accepted a Jewish state. If you look at, like, when I was in school, it was the 47 UN accepted the Jewish state. They didn't even say the partition plan. It's not the partition plan that is celebrated. It's the Jewish state. The UN voted for a Jewish state. This is the framing.
Yeah, of course, it matters to Israel more than that is what happened than the other thing.
Than the partition itself, yeah.
What is the significance of that, though?
I think there's a big significance because if you're celebrating the partition, you have to now deal with a partner and build a way forward.
That didn't happen because the partition plan wasn't accepted.
Like I said before, anyway, I feel like maybe there's other people, but that want to come up.
Yeah, well, I do want to bring Altoids on.
Yeah, okay, fine. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Info. And again, if you both want to do this again with more time, just let me know and we'll set it up.
All right.
Cool. Altoids. Hold on, Danny, how much more time do you have?
Honestly, I don't have like a hard limit. I can go for as long as you think, like 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, we'll run it for another 20, and then we'll do. We'll do some. I'll do some solo Q&A.
By the way, I don't see the people on the screen. I just hear them, which is fine.
Yeah, they're in Discord.
Okay.
You can see them if you log into Discord as well. Maybe you want to do that, but.
I think there was an echo for me, so I won't do that.
Okay, well, I'll describe. The person you're speaking to, his name is Altoids Maximus, and his icon is a cartoon photo of a historical religious figure holding the Torah. Altoids, maybe you want to tell us who your icon is?
It's no one specifically. I mean, it looks like me, rather.
Oh, okay, cool. So cartoon Altoids. All right, Altoids, what's up? What's on your mind?
Okay, so I listened to Danny, and if I'm not mistaken, I think you are a proponent of the one-state solution only. That's correct?
The one-state solution, yes.
Okay, so the one-state solution that you claim to want to have is already occurred. The one-state solution was the pre-1947 situation in Israel,
right?
Where the Arabs and the Jews live in one state under the British control.
Yes.
Now, what happened in the pre-1947 situation? I mean, before the mandate of Palestine, the Jews bought land and they lived there, and they brought a lot of economic changes into the land. That we all know this information if we study a little bit of the story of the conflict. The Jews drove the fixed jobs the Palestinians had, the Arabs, from the rural areas, the agriculture centers, the farms, and all this good stuff. And that obviously caused a drift in the population. Now, people say that if there was one-state solution, there will be peace and love amongst populations. But when there was a one-state solution, people did not like each other for whether it was economic reasons, it was religious reasons, political reasons, competing political claims, competing economic claims. Any social category you can imagine, they were competing for. It's not even national claims that they were competing for initially. It was also the economic ones, the social ones, and etc. If you make a one-state solution today, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think everybody's going to sing Kumbaya and like all the problems will be solved because there's one state without the Israeli flag and without Hebrew as the first and only language? Do you think that will solve every issue? Or do you think there's deeper reasons why the hate, even if you take out the national hate, the national pride and all these things, and then the ideological positions that people have, there will be hate for other reasons as well? Because the competing claims are not just sovereignty. Please, I would like to elaborate this because we always fight on the history, but let's talk about the possibilities of the one-state solution.
Yeah.
Just general.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I think that in order for the one-state solution to work, there needs to be a formation of a national civic identity that allows for multiple cultural identities at the same time. The way I think about it is, as humans, what unites us is an identity of who we are. Now, we can have multiple identity at the same times. What Israel is doing right now, it's taking the Jewish identity and the national identity, and it puts it together, and it says there's only one. There's only one way to be really Israeli is by to be Jewish, and it puts them together. But I think that in a successful society, there's basically two realms of identity. There is a civic national identity, and there is a community's cultural identity. They work simultaneously. You don't need to combine one with the national. You actually don't want to. You want to allow for multiple diversity of cultural identities within one national identity. So yeah, you can say it didn't work in the past because the Ottoman and the British mandate. I don't care. I mean, I think that basically, if you look, let's say, at France or Germany, they were not one identity until nationalism came and created from scratch a new national identity that allowed the smaller community cultural identity to coexist with them. Like you can see it in Central and South America. In Mexico, the Spaniards came, they brought in the Spanish culture, Spanish architecture, Spanish language, and then today they're celebrating Dia de los Muertos. It's like some kind of a Mayan cultural national holidays. How many national holidays in Israel?
You're making a generalization with Latin America. Actually, I'm an expert in Latin American history, and this is a very general, very bad opinion on of the Latin American history, because first Spanish came, but they didn't just control the entire land. They actually were welcomed by many indigenous groups who were tired of the overlords, like the situation in Mexico, in the Mexican.
I don't want to get too specific about Mexico.
Half of the Indians there, the indigenous peoples, most of them, actually not half, welcome and ally with the Spanish. And they gained noble titles. The leadership became nobles of Spain. And to this day, many of these indigenous noble families still are nobles in Spain today. And they became Catholics. And the Dia de los Muertos celebration is a modern thing. Is in the last century that's becoming a thing. In the past, the Catholic Church, and to this day still does, completely banned that celebration, and nobody followed it because they thought it was like a really bad celebration. It was just recently, because of modern times, people is less religious, it's become more of a thing.
Yeah, that's an evolution. In Israel, there is no today national holidays that are not Jewish related.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the evolution we need to see. Once you
your analogy on Israel-Palestine again, it's not like, first of all, the indigenous people became Catholics for the most part. The majority became Catholic, and some Catholic synchronism, etc. But in the Middle East, where Judaism is originated from, if you are claiming similar analogy, the analogy will be that the Jews should convert to Islam and follow Muslim traditions and all these things, and otherwise, or the other way around, to make something like Latin America occur and happen, that people should mix to each other. One of the course of Judaism is no mixing. In fact, I think that's the main core. Like, that's the only reason Judaism exists as a religion, is to avoid mixing with other people. Every single Torah, to the Talmud, to the traditions, to the oral, everything is based on the no mixing of the populations. And Islam also bans mixing between men and between women that's Muslim, and
that's why
that are against it.
That's why a future civic identity should be detached from religion identity, and that would allow for, actually, what Israel or any nation should do is put religion tolerance as the definition of successful survival mode. If I can be tolerated as a Jew, then the state can be successful. And yeah, my analogy of Mexico is not perfect. I'm just trying to say that there is a way to put civic identity as the form that unites people on a national level, and then allow them to have cultural identities within that.
Look, I get it. I have always gotten the point of the national identity idea. It worked in countries where national identity is not such a big issue, like in the United States. It works perfectly because the United States is acultural, it's just a really weird country where many cultures combine and establish a state. But when we're speaking, and that's because the United States is a modern country that's defined by classical liberalism.
Let me ask you a question.
The United States. When we go to the Middle East, where everything is defined by religion or ethnic group, everybody lives under that. Unless you change the entire Middle East, I highly doubt Israel will be able to survive, or the Jews will be able to survive in that situation. Just look at Syria.
One of the mistakes people make is that they think that the Middle East is one form of political organization that cannot be modified. Let me give you an example. Jews and Muslim, like in Palestine, Israel, do they have anything in common? And the answer is, of course they do. They have, first of all, from a religion point of view, Abraham was the son of Isaac and Ishmael. I mean, when we draw the map, the outline of the map, we draw the same thing. You know, the olive tree, the Jerusalem, the sons of Abraham, the idea. You know, many Palestinians today are descendant of the inhabitants of Judea. They were probably Jews, but when Islam came, it gave them an option. You can convert, or you have to pay more taxes. And some people converted to Islam, obviously, but originally they're from Judea. They're Judeans. They are from the Hasmonean dynasty. I mean, we're brothers. We're not cousins. We're literally brothers. You know, this idea that we're cousins always frustrates me. Like, why are you saying cousins? You're my brother. You know, we have so much in common. We can build a new national identity.
I agree. We are brothers.
We can build a new national identity. It's not.
I love Arabs and I love many Palestinians. But the truth is, even brothers, when the parent dies and they're all fighting over the house, they all become enemies all of a sudden. And unless there's a arbitration that solves that issue, there will always be, even in the story of Ishmael in Yitzhak, you can see clearly that there was an infight that was solved eventually at the end when they bury Abraham together. But I get it. It's an idealistic idea that we are all brothers, and I agree. I would love Arabs to love us back.
Let me say something.
To love Arabs. It's a problem that is both sides. But the issue is, until these national problems are not solved, there will be eternal hate. And if we have a one-state solution, how are you going to make Palestinians who make $500 a month, in contrast to a Jew who makes much more, 4, 5, 10 times more than them? And how are you going to solve the economic inequality? How are you going to solve the clear political difference? Because money buys power in many cases. How are you going to solve that the Jews are better in the army and therefore they will still control the military of the one-state solution? Like, these things are solved through affirmative action, and affirmative action is known to just cause more problems.
I want to use the analogy of the brothers because I think this is critical to my point. In a family, you have a parent and you have siblings. The role of the parent is to build an identity of a family under which we all can be our individual personalities. The parent needs to tell all siblings they love them equally, and they need to know that they are loved and protected. This is job number one of a parent, is to have the child know he's loved and protected. Other than that, the parent makes some rules. You cannot do this and that. You have to be home by this and that. But you can be yourself within. So the state role here is like the role of the parent. The state not supposed to take sides. It's supposed to give an umbrella under which I know that he is my brother. And like Adar said, maybe I'm going to disagree with him at home, but outside, I'm going to be on his side. I want everybody between the river and the sea to know that the person next to them will stand by them. If Iran wants to shoot a missile, we're all going after them. I mean, we are in this together. I mean, this is for me like almost like self-explanatory. Obviously it's hard to see how we can go there because we have to dismantle the identity that's currently holding on to the Jewish population. Right now, what Zionism is doing to the Jewish population is, I don't want to use kind of like extreme terms, but it's almost like they're telling them that they need this for survival. But if you look at it, it's like self-destroying itself. So somehow, and this is one of the biggest challenges, somehow we need to be able to evolve into something that allows both a unity and a diversity to coexist. This is the role of the parent, is to give a united identity which allows for our cultural identities to thrive.
But I want to continue. I want to ask the previous question that you said about that the Jews should give away from the religious identity, national identity to a...
No.
So you're
the Jewish population in Israel today needs to let go of
you want to be like the United States that would have a national identity.
Wait, hold on, Altoids. You let him clarify his position because I think you
this is extremely important. I just want to clarify that the Jewish people in Israel today, in my vision, needs to let go of their national identity as the owners of the land, but as Jews, we remain Jews. It's very important. Actually, Judaism would thrive by not being related to a nationalism. This is killing Judaism in a way. Judaism is a philosophy, it's a culture, it's literature. We need to be able to think freely, not as a militaristic nationalism.
Okay, so I get your point, but I think this is just completely dismissing Jewish identity. We're dismissing what are some of the cores of Jewish identity, because Jewish identity is not just being submissive and being nice and accepting living in a country with other people. Jewish identities, like our identity, they evolve and evolve all the time. We were a national group who were independent or autonomous in our native land, and then we weren't for many years. Just an equal amount between being independent and autonomous and not being independent and autonomous, around 2,000 years, more or less each. And then we have this situation right now in which we are independent, sovereign, and autonomous for the most part, if you don't want to include the American absolute control over Israel policies for the most part. So identities evolve and evolve all the time. Why is it that we, the Jewish people, have to devolve ourselves and our identity as a sovereign, independent society in its native land just to appease a different group or to appease a bigger group? I get it. Survivability, maybe. Maybe we don't want to be exterminated by the entire Arab world, the Muslim world, whatever people make up to this day. But we don't have the duty to eliminate our identity. That's why Adar and most even people who don't like Israel that much in what they're doing in general, they still support the two-state solution because they don't want to throw all Jews under the bus just so we can all have a one-state solution that we know is not going to work. Yes, maybe it will work. Maybe there's like a 10%, maybe less possibility of it working in a very nice world. But just because you support the one-state solution, and Adar supports the two-state solution, and I don't support the one-state solution, but I support the two-state solution. That means that Jews who don't want to take away their identity and their national independence shouldn't be thrown under the bus to please somebody else. That's the whole point of the two-state solution.
Yeah, I'm not against Jewish nationalism, like by as a concept, you know. But in the world we live in, it doesn't work. It's simply counterproductive and destructive. Like, do you think the state of Israel is doing well?
As a country, in which way? In militarily, diplomatically?
Like in the last since I don't know, 48. Like how Israel is doing?
Is doing better than they did 2,000 years ago.
Oh, so compared to the Hasmonean dynasty, which was filled with like assassination, backstabbing, and chaos between the Tzadukis and the Perushim, it was
exactly.
a complete chaos.
Exactly, it's much better now.
But we're going towards the same type of destiny. Nationalism.
I get it, but I believe in the idea that first, and this is a very selfish, I get it, I'm very selfish in this position, but I believe that the Jews first should solve their problems, i.e. be independent, be united in their objectives, believing in their own interests first, and then once we have solved those issues, we can move on to be nice to the whole world. And there's no issue in being nice to the whole world. We can achieve that. But if we're infighting, or we are doing, or we cannot all get together and what's the safe situation for the Jewish people, then it's not possible. And right now, the safest situation is Israel, whether we like it or not, whether we like what they're doing or not. We can criticize Israel's policies. We can criticize Likud. We can criticize Benjamin Netanyahu and all these people who are in charge. We can criticize the Ashkenazi Jews. We can criticize the Sephardic Jews. We can put blame anywhere we want. But saying that we need to dismantle the safety mechanism in order to maybe get peace, I just think it's not.
Let me ask you a question. Let's say I give you two options, and these two options are obsolete. Okay, there's no if and whatever. One option, we keep doing what we're doing. Okay, Israel, the Jewish state, all of that. Option number two is saying the following. We guarantee peace. And this is non-questionable, okay? Just go with me for a minute. We guarantee peace for everybody from the river to the sea. No one needs to leave. No one needs to change the language they speak, the religion they follow, nothing. But the Jews need to let go of the flag. They need to let go of the name Israel, and they need to let go of the concept that this land belongs to the Jewish people. These are two options:
Right.
peace or Jewish supremacy. Like, which one would you go for?
All right, we're gonna, and Altoids, after this, we're gonna wrap it up. So have this be your final thoughts.
Yes, Adar. The question is actually, I think, a very bad question, because you're giving two very black and white questions. Is either you get Jewish supremacy, as you call it, or we get to live in the Kumbaya United States of the Levant.
I can rephrase.
Either is not worth it. I mean, there's a very simple, there's a very answer to your question, and I think it's in the middle of the two questions.
I would say
you get security by having the Palestinians and the Arabs and Jews talk to each other, not with the idea of, oh, I want the entire territory, because it's not going to happen unless there's serious ethnic cleansing on any of the two sides, or genocide. And you talk to each other, you maintain security for each group, then you make a gradual economic integration, but you maintain the national sovereignty and rights of those two groups separately, and what we otherwise call the two-state solution. Now, when that happens, maybe in the future, we might move from the two-state solution to perhaps at something like the European Union. Maybe let's integrate Lebanon too and make them great again. Whatever you want to make it happen. But for right now, we need to make it step by step. If we just go into the suicidal position of, let's just dismantle the IDF, let's dismantle Israel, let's dismantle everything, and just let everybody walk around and like do whatever they want, it's just not safe for anyone. Not for Jews, not for Israel. It's just going to end up in civil war, and people die, and there will be more ethnic cleansing, and extremism will become more popular than it is today.
Okay.
You want to respond to that, Danny?
Well, I think I want to clarify my question maybe. Would you be willing to give up, as an Israeli, the flag for another flag, the name of the state for another name, and the idea that the state is Jewish by definition in exchange for peace?
I don't trade national rights for security or security for national rights. Both have to coincide. That's why the two-state solution is the best solution.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Altoids.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right, so Danny, I guess we're just about done here. Any final thoughts either you want to leave us with, or maybe there's one more point you want us to discuss? And then I'm going to do some Q&A before we wrap the stream up.
No, honestly, I appreciate you giving me this platform. This has been something I've been working on, like within like my own writing and my own research. I mean, I think for the last 25 years, I'm just like trying to figure it all out. And funny enough, since October 7, it's getting more and more clear, like what's the path forward. I feel like Israel, for me, was able to believe that this Jewish state idea can work, but now I think, and you can see it, I think, throughout the world, it's clear there's a major change needs to happen, and I hope to do more, bringing up forward my ideas and my vision. And I think this is what needs to. I think a long-term new vision needs to be put together in a way that can form. You've been also saying the federation, we need to transform, and I think there's so many of us, but I think we need to somehow be putting together a real movement with a real vision and a real plan that people can join.
I'm with you on that. And you're welcome back anytime, Danny, to make the case. And you also have, do you want to drop a link to your YouTube? You have a podcast as well?
Yeah, right now I'm on my PC, so I don't, I guess I can.
You can also send it to me afterwards. I'll drop it in chat and I'll put in the description as well.
Yeah,
so
I forgot to mention that you and I had an interview in Hebrew on my YouTube channel, so definitely people can check it out. If you put my name in the Google search, it will come up.
Awesome. Danny, thank you so much.
Thanks, Adar. All right.